right, well, let's get going here. So, what wins or successes? What good things have happened since we met last? Which, and I haven't met you yet. I guess. Sorry, I should do that.
Nicole Davis.
Nicole. Oh, yeah. Okay. We've talked, I guess,
Yes.
but in email, but
Yes.
hadn't met you. So awesome. So you're in Centerville, right?
Mhm.
So there you go.
I'm
There
here.
you go.
Yep,
Yeah.
I know.
Awesome. Well, good. Well, glad to have you here. So, wins or successes? What good things? Give me some good news. What's going on?
Well, I finally got on the phones
Awesome.
yesterday.
That's a win.
Yes. Well, I got a for sale by owner, and he's interested in seller finance. And I'm still trying to get him the idea of having an agent, so I'm gonna have to talk to someone about I made an appointment. Him and his wife will be coming here at 5:30 on Tuesday.
Nice. You even got him coming here.
Yes, they're
Good,
coming
man.
here.
Good job. That's awesome. That's a huge win. If you can get, number one, to even get an appointment with a for sale by owner sometimes can be a little tricky, but then to get them to say, come in and meet with me, awesome.
And I need help with this one.
Okay? And in terms of what?
Well, I just haven't done this before. And
Well, you're in luck, because what we're going to talk about today is presentations for class. So,
And also about seller financing.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
What are some pros and cons? They're the ones that brought that up, and I thought, okay, if I can grab them with that. So.
Okay, good. Well, let's
And then
talk
he wants
about
to buy investments too. Investment
Cool.
properties.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that after.
Okay.
Sounds good. Good. What other wins or successes? Del.
I had a listing go up last week, and the next day we went under contract.
Oh, awesome.
And then got a backup offer on it, and 2 other people who want to put more backup. I mean, it's just like, it's super stacked. And we got over asking price, no closing costs. Like, it's awesome.
Awesome. Congratulations. Good
So
job.
great.
Yeah, that's the thing. Right now, seriously, listings are king. I mean, in this market, always that's the case. I mean, really, in my 20 years, it's always the case. But even never more so in my 20 years than right now. You get a listing that is priced somewhat fairly even, and you're getting offers on it, and multiple offers and things. In fact, I actually was looking at yesterday, I pulled up, and you've heard probably George talk about this in the last little while, but I noticed actually a few weeks ago that there are more properties under contract than there are for sale right now, which I've never seen that happen. Generally, I've seen it be close, but I've never seen it actually. So I looked yesterday just to kind of see. And again, another anomaly that I've never seen. But and in both of these things. Number one is there were 2,280 homes for sale in Salt Lake County. I mean, that is like the lowest I've ever seen. And I keep saying that, and then it keeps dropping lower. But that's the lowest I've ever seen. But when I pulled up the under contracts, any idea how many are under contract? There were 2,700, and I don't remember exactly the number. So you got 2,280 for sale, but under contract 2,700 and something. And
Why is that? Why is the market like that right now? Is there a reason for it, or is it just because it is?
Well, so great question. I think part of it is what you have, again, those that have been here and listening to George talk since he got back from the conference in Florida. One of the things they talked about is the lack of new construction. So I think part of the reason our inventory is so low is because the builders over the last number of years have not been building enough properties to make up the difference. And so people are just going out and jumping and buying what's there. And so as stuff comes on, I mean, it's interesting because if you look at the under contracts, that like I say, it was 2,700 and something yesterday when I looked versus 2,280 for sale. That 2,700, if you go back like 2 months ago, was like 1,800. So like you've had that many more buyers that have entered the market, and so it's just can't keep up ultimately. So my guess would be why is it that way? 2 things. One, people I think somewhat maybe got harmed a little bit financially through the last number of years. There are a lot, I think, that believe they can't qualify to buy a house right now, even though they can. I mean, really, I think there are a ton of buyers out there, or let me even say that differently. There are a ton of sellers out there that aren't selling because they think, well, we filed for bankruptcy 4 years ago or whatever, and so we can't afford, we're not going to qualify. Because there's just a belief out there that you got to wait 7 years, which is probably a good segue to talk about some of that. But anyway, so that's I think that's part of why.
Okay.
So anyway, good. What other wins or successes? What good things? Timber.
The house that I listed on Wednesday went under contract on Friday,
Awesome.
and
There's a theme here.
they're working very quickly to get it closed, so that's exciting when the buyer is just excited about everything working out as the seller is.
Yeah.
I'm talking to 3 or 4 people about getting in with their like HR people for relocation, and I think I have an appointment tomorrow with 2 sellers who want to merge into one home. So
Oh, gotcha. Nice.
like a grandmother and a daughter that live on the same street. So
The 2 listings that they would go
and then
buy.
they would go into one.
Nice.
That's 3
Awesome. That'll-
transactions.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then an appointment I think next week with a friend who's just finishing up a plumbing in her like a new bathroom. So
Awesome. Congratulations. Good. Andy. So I
So I got my first listing and my first buyer, appointment for buyer's client. I did find out on a new home, when you go take a client to a new home, I assumed that they gave a discount based on if they use an agent or not use an agent. I found out that they don't necessarily do that. Is that pretty common?
kind of depends on the builder. So like I had an uncle of mine, which he's somewhat retired, and my cousin has now taken over. But their company, for years and years, when my uncle was in charge, he never, if you walked in with an agent, they always said, the prices you see are 3% higher if you've got an agent. Now, there are a lot of, and I don't know what your thoughts are, Dave, but I would say a majority of the builders are planning on paying an agent. It's just kind of built in.
And I asked them outright, and they said, no, we don't give a discount. What we would do is if they didn't have an agent and there was an upgrade they couldn't afford to put into their loan, they would just give them up to, it was like $3,000. So it was nowhere near the 3% of an agent's.
Yeah. A lot of times just the builder keeps the difference. So.
You know, you can actually work with new construction to get them to give you some sort of incentive, like a $500 upgrade or something for free 11 times the equipment cost.
Say
It's
that
been
one
my
more time.
experience. I work with a couple builders that if I take them a client, they'll actually do a $500, courtesy upgrade.
For the client.
Yeah, and in fact, if it's along the lines of that, I don't know if Ivory still does it. Dave, you probably
It's
do more
Ivory
with
now.
Ivory. Oh yeah, I was gonna say, used to be with them, like the first client you brought to them, you basically just got your commission. The next one, they would send you some gift, and I mean, it was like the more people you took to them, the more we
Really?
did
So
for
new
you.
construction being as busy as it is, that might be,
They're fairly agent friendly.
Yeah.
They want
That's
you to
the nice
bring them business, and if you find someone who isn't, I would just flat out smile and say, I'll take them to buy somebody else's house.
that surprised me, because I thought, I was under the assumption that
That it was all
saved the people money if they didn't pay.
No, very rare.
It doesn't.
Like I say, there are some. Yeah, there are some that do that. Like I said, my uncle did that, but when my cousin now has taken over, he has become very agent friendly.
Okay.
And so
So
anyway, good. All right, what other wins or successes?
I closed one and then put a buyer under contract and got a referral side with 2 appointments.
Nice, congratulations, good job, awesome, good job, okay, good. All right, so we got Paul here with Citywide, so any specific questions you have mortgage related that Paul can answer, or anything you want to share with us on?
Okay. Again, I'll introduce myself. A lot of you I already know, but I'm Paul Jolly. I'm just right across the foyer at Citywide Home Loans. Again, it's good to be with you. As Russ had indicated, there's a lot of individuals out there, they don't think they can qualify. And we have lots of tools and lots of things at our disposal here to help them get them into to the point where they are able to purchase. We were working with an individual that had a Chapter 7 bankruptcy last year, and what we're doing with them is we're working with them to kind of what is known as season their credit. 2 years from the date of discharge. It's only 2 years in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. An individual is able to pull the trigger and move forward. So it's not the extenuating 4 or 5, 10 years, 7-year numbers that you hear about. But for Chapter 7, that's the situation. And then for the Chapter 13 and so forth, that's a little more complex. That's a little further out. depending on the extenuating circumstances, if they can document it, that timetable can be shortened. So anyway, let us see if we can help you out. Again, my name is Paul Jolly, and we're just right across the foyer. And thank you again for the opportunity to say hi.
Yeah, any questions for, you know,
Paul, does it require a hardship letter after 2 before 3?
Yeah, there's, I mean, any type of validation, justification, any type of narrative that can be provided describing the situation is always helpful.
And after 3, they don't require the hardship?
Yeah, well, pretty much. I mean, that's, it's actually for, are you talking about chapter
7.
Chapter 7? It's 2 years from the date of discharge. That's it. So if they filed and they had their they filed in June, they had their discharge September 1, it's 2 years from that September 1 date. They're clear. Okay? Those are the rulings. So anyway,
Is it the same with 13s? Like, what do they do with 13s?
13 is a little further out. It's a little, that's 4 years, unless they have some, credible letter stating
Like loss of
this is the
jobs or-
situation. It was extenuating circumstances. So those are the things you want to keep in mind. But there's lots of individuals out there that, you know, again, we work with them to, again, season their credit and try to get them to a point where they can move forward. And if it's not, you know, today or next month or the month after, a lot of times, you know, just a couple months from now, you know, they are in a position where they can do things. So
What about the Native American loans? Are you guys familiar with those?
we are the Chenoweth.
Huh?
The Chenoweth, I think it's Chenoweth.
I think, yeah.
Yeah,
It's for my
no down
my
payment.
family pretty much owns like not owns, but they're the leaders of the Wasatch Front,
Mhm.
Northwest
Yeah, there's-
Shoney's or
There's
something.
there's some special things out there.
They said to make sure I know somebody who knows
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. That's usually specific to a no down payment. It's a grant. It's affiliated with the FHA loan. So yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Cool.
Good to know.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks,
Come
Paul.
and see us.
Appreciate your
We're
help.
just right across the hall. We got even closer there. Take care.
All right, so one thing that I realized I forgot to do last week was our accountability. So typically on Tuesdays, I'm going to pass out to you this an accountability contract. So what I want you to do is get into groups of 2 or 3 and put together some accountability. So what this should be in terms of is prospecting. So what will you do this week? So from today until next Tuesday in terms of prospecting. How many contacts or how many hours or a number of appointments, okay? So what I want you to do is get into groups of 2, no more than 3, and then put together what you'll do. And then, you know, the contract will be in force until, so next Tuesday, which is probably April 5th? Yeah, 5th, April 5th. And then if you don't do it, what you will do. So a lot of times people will say, if I don't do it, I've had people do, in fact, David, did he tell you, somebody gave him like $100, I think, one day or something.
Oh,
Maybe it
really?
might not have been that much.
I
but-
never seen it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, whoops. Guess maybe I shouldn't have said that. Might not have been $100, but, so the idea of this is, whatever you're gonna put down here needs to be uncomfortable enough that you'd rather go and do the prospecting or the contacts or the appointments. So, whatever it is for you. I mean, if it's, you know, I'll eat a can of cat food or something. I mean, you know, whatever. I don't care. Just whatever it is that will make you say, I'm going to keep the commitment to do this. Does that make sense? Okay, so go ahead, Tim.
What is the situation with an abandoned house?
What do you mean?
Well, how do you find out, like, can people buy it? I mean, how does it work?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Okay, so what you have to do is first,
because the house has like notices of abandonment, like multiple notices of abandonment.
Okay.
And so I'm just wondering, like, where do you move from there?
So what you've got to do is find out who the owner is
Do I just go on the MLS and
to county records.
county records?
Yeah, go to the county records and find out who owns it, and then you got to try to track them down.
What
So I would start with neighbors.
So I just moved in,
Facebook.
squat for 7 years.
Yeah, you could try that as well, moving and squat. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that from school.
Yeah, I
So-
pay the tax.
Okay.
Yeah, pay taxes on it. So
Yeah, I gotta.
yeah, no, Facebook, neighbors, you know, just try to track them down and then from there, just find out what's going on. So typically though, and I would even have the title company pull and look and see, has there been a notice of default filed, or, you know, are they current on their payments and stuff
And then
like
what do you do, like, I mean, how does it move forward from there?
that. Well, it depends on what you find out,
Okay,
but ultimately, once you find out who it is, you just would say to them, let me
then
help
buy
you
your
sell
house
it.
for $1.
Yeah, or buy it or whatever, yeah, absolutely.
Why would somebody abandon their house?
No idea.
Well, I think sometimes somebody probably moved from it and then they died.
Yeah, it could be.
You know?
Maybe, I guess it's just in an area where like nobody ever wants to move out.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, it could be that they lost their job and can't afford it and were embarrassed and so they just left. I mean,
Yeah.
who knows? Could be
Families
anything.
fighting over it.
Yeah. Could be that. I mean, there's a house just outside of my neighborhood that for years I watched that was like that, and even still today, it just kind of sits there.
Yeah, it's in my
But
neighborhood,
I
so
think a construction company has now bought it because I'm seeing a bunch of things parked out there, but who knows?
so just
Just
call
have to track them down and find out what's going on. Yeah, this is where you get to become a private detective. So,
I didn't know that's what I went to school
all right, so get your accountability taken care of in the next few minutes here, and then we'll get going.
You know what, also Google the address. I always went, because a couple times, one in Brisbane and one here in American Fork, the houses burned down. And it was just nothing, both of them, the houses were both burned down. And then I Googled and saw what happened and who owns it too.
Yeah.
So Google the address.
Try it. Yeah, just find out who owns
for. Yeah, I'll just go on the Facebook.
it. Yeah, start with tax records. Once you get that, then you can try
It's easy
Facebook.
because you just,
Try Facebook. Talk to neighbors.
okay, well, I walked the neighborhood to like, because my other house,
Just-
it's all in my same.
Yeah, I just knock on the next door
I can't
neighbor.
leave my neighborhood right now,
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, knock on the next door neighbor and say what's going on. What do you think what's going on with this? You know where the people are at.
Okay, cool.
Let's do it.
Is it something? You want to make it accurate?
I don't know when I'm gonna be here next year.
Well,
You can still. It doesn't matter.
Oh, it's $100.
You can still do it. Come on.
Is that how it's?
Get in the game, Andy.
You should put
What's
this
next
on.
Tuesday?
April 5th. Oh, what class?
Hey.
I think it's company foundation.
Do we, I'm not gonna be here the whole weekend. What's it, but do we still have class on the 12th?
Well, there's not one scheduled on the 12th because it was going to be Summit,
Summit.
but now Summit's on the 11th. So
So you just are.
yeah, what I was thinking about maybe doing is just kind of doing a. If you want help, show up and we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about.
I'm actually out of town that week, so it benefits me.
Oh, okay.
There's only one night.
Yeah. So no. Yeah. You'll only miss one.
Okay.
Okay.
Make your extra day of these hires.
Yeah, you probably should. It needs analysis thing. Yeah. It's not a bad idea to come and just do some practice stuff like that. Yeah.
So you just got full time or you
Yeah.
got part time?
You can do it. Yeah.
It's a good idea. This is your job.
So I would have to sign off or something 3 times.
Okay. Wow.
Everything they're saying.
It's up to you. They don't care.
One day over this stupid amounts
And
of.
I was supposed to take a client to 3 properties yesterday, so today I think we're talking to email.
Because of your a little bit, I think
All 3 are. I hate to, you're gonna drag your feet, you're gonna,
you never had a house started out.
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yep. No, well, then the flip
Because
side
the
of that
good
though is,
ones are gone.
I've got my brother-in-law's house listed, and I think the key is what you just said.
Just getting back.
I've had like 5 offers on it, but every time I've said,
Probably part that.
it's now under contract, but prior to that, every time I would say, give us highest and best, everybody goes.
Yeah, people are running
And
from
I
it.
was like, what the heck?
See, and I didn't do, and maybe this is a weird way to go about it.
Have you?
I just want the best for my client, so when they came, and I said, this is the offer that we've got, what can you do about that? Like I told them what the offer was, I told them the dates, I told them the
Yeah,
price, I told them everything, so you have to be at least $1,000 higher on this, you have to get more. So they said, okay, great, so you guys just do that. The backup offer did the same thing, it's like,
They'll always give it to you, man.
that's the way it goes. So the backup offer is now with full mesh, we can go, not contingent on it.
Well, the nice thing is then, when they do their inspections and they come back and ask for stuff, you can just go, nope. Not doing it. Yep, we got this backup offer, we'd rather go with it anyway. So nope.
Which they technically just, so it should be great. There was any questions about it.
But that is good with the backup, because otherwise the backup's gonna move on.
Exactly.
And
So I'm under
also,
contract for 207 square foot in Rose Park.
No, I understand.
Are you kidding me?
No, and that's what things are doing right now.
In Rose, 207.
Everything in Rose Park is going
Are you kidding me?
No,
I haven't even looked at that.
it's incredible what's going on in Rose Park, it's amazing. Everything has gone over list and they're all listed at like
and I think
7.
they have like.
Oh, Dornar, the Rose Park?
So I got a physical, so I was in contact with them, going on physical, and they have been trying to list them. But then also set up buyers, one of them I knew they liked, so I took them to it, but these people, the day after I showed them, listed with their agent.
So, what's your plan on content?
So we're working with them, which is fine with me.
Yeah,
It's
but it's-
better for me.
Oh, yeah, that's
By law.
Yeah, oh, yeah, for sure. But too bad for them.
Or too bad on the other side.
Or you have even more than that.
I was really upset with myself when I put more pressure on closing the listing.
So have you already read
Crazy.
I hope we can. They were listening to 31 to 40 minus 5.
Wow.
So when 5 grand over the
Sorry.
What about you? What's your goal for calls?
Oh,
You got it?
How many calls? Do you guys, when you're on a team, do you make cold calls?
Depends on the team. Depends on the team.
So what's, how do you structure your goals? How do you know whatever you're doing? Other than he goes, here, let's take these.
So let's say I'm not yesterday.
And I printed my scripts out, and I have all my for sale by owner scripts out. And then I, when I'm waiting for the phone to ring, I'm reading, so all the questions, you know what I mean? Because I like it. Yeah, I like to have it out, and also all.
All right, 2 minutes, wrap it up, 2 minutes.
All the questions, because they like you to ask all the questions, and then they feel more confident with you when you have them talk more than you do, and then they feel, and then you organize. You're so clever to do that, or, and I got sometimes, some guys, like me, you're so clever, I just
So my last two listing, 2 buyers, was
I love that, I'm so, I just.
They have 2 people over here.
What's your approach? Four appointments, and at least one
Yeah.
contract.
And then get my mom's
So the
property.
other one's a buyer.
There's a
Yeah,
program
that's
called
fun.
Mojo. Can you talk about that Mojo?
I don't think so, not for this one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's-
oh,
You know what, maybe a last
Oh. What's that?
I use it.
But I do want to start making my calls because then I always have to.
Oh, by the way.
Yeah, and also I said,
See, that's what
see, I done with my husband, and my friends, oh my goodness, this is great.
Okay, 30 seconds, finish it up.
And, yeah, and I just said, I have a contract with me, I'm just like, what?
Can I bring it back around?
Hey, 29.
Yeah.
Is that?
29.
And I
Yes.
said to make up
Today's
rules and walk the mile to go. Okay, maybe that's been what I want to do.
Well, there's Pete, we can start now.
I get both ones. Somebody's taking somebody to lunch in the street. You gotta start talking. Right before everyone got sick.
But everyone else does it.
That was 6 weeks. Not doing sales. And so I did 15 minutes. 30 minutes of You sign it too, so.
Yeah, but it'll have to come out. I got a ton It will have to be like.
Good. So this is yours. I'll get yours.
All right, let's get going here.
Yours. Yeah, you keep each other.
Yeah, so Andy just brought up a good point. You're not keeping your own. So you're gonna keep whoever your accountability partner is. So if you're in the group of 3, trade it around
I'll make
with 3
sure
or
I'm
something.
here in the morning. I still owe, what's that really small guy's name down in?
Jason,
I owe him lunch still, but he won't ever go.
he won't take, well, if it makes you feel better, he bought
This
me,
is all.
he sent me a gift card to like Texas Roadhouse, so.
It makes me feel like.
If that makes you feel better. So, I know, he's my favorite now for some reason. I just did. Okay.
In-N-Out Burger would still be your favorite?
Maybe. You know, I used to love In-N-Out Burger before they were here.
Yeah.
When I was in California, I loved it. Now,
Go to Vegas,
now
yeah.
my kids are always like, let's go to In-N-Out. I'm like, I'd rather go to Five Guys.
That's awesome. In-N-Out. Yeah, their fries are like cardboard.
Yeah, and they're tiny. All right, let's get going here. So presentations. So here's what we're gonna get. As we jump into talking about presentations, there's a few like key pieces. I know. Whenever you guys are,
Sorry.
whenever you're ready, just let me.
Just talking about the stopwatch thing, that George used to
Oh,
use.
yeah. So there's a couple of key things on presentations that I want to go through first to talk about. So, yes, today's the 29th.
It's really hot, guys, I need to turn off the heater.
I know, I turned it all the way to cold there.
I can turn this on, surely.
I don't know if that's gonna help. All of a sudden it felt quiet now, I turned the thing on. All right, so, couple of key things that we want to talk about in terms of presentations first. So, first thing, what is your job in terms of when you are, I've been trying to think of the best way to ask this question, because I've heard both George and John talk about this in some relation, and they'll typically say, what's your job? And then there's like a number of different things, directions that we could go with it. But in terms of you being an agent, what is your number one job? So, okay, so this is kind of where I was saying is, so there's a number of different directions. We can consult and advise, but what's a broader way of saying that? Because you're right, but what would be a broader way?
Solve a problem.
Okay, solve a problem, I like that.
Find clients.
To what?
Find clients.
No, once you've got a
Oh,
client,
what's
what's your job? So what's your job, well, now that you've got, because yes, you're right, your number one job is to prospect, you gotta go find clients, right?
To
But
sell
now
their-
that you've found one,
to sell their home or.
Advocate.
okay, good, think even a little bit broader than that. I mean, you guys are all, everything you're saying is right on, but I think there's like one word that would encompass everything that you're talking about.
Succeed, help your client succeed in the
Absolutely,
process.
Oh,
Sure.
goodness. I just think of advocate.
Warm fuzzy.
okay,
I'll help you out.
lead. Essentially what your job, right, is to lead somebody through this process, right? So your job, your number one job, and this is where probably you guys that are in Centerville will hear John talk about this probably more than anybody. But your number one job really is to be a leader, and is to provide leadership. So what does that, what is leadership? If you had to define what leadership is, what does it mean? What does leadership mean? Yeah, thank you. It means a lot of things. But what comes to mind as you think about it?
Knowledge.
Okay, good. Knowledge,
Influence.
influence, a guide. Yeah, I mean, think about if you are leading somebody, what? In fact, who was I with? I was with somebody in the car the other day. It might have been Dave Barrett. That like, we were going to lunch. There was a car that was in front of us, and we talked about that specific car for a minute. And then we pulled off and stopped at the bank. Then we got back out on 13th East and we were driving, and all of a sudden that car passed us. And we were like, wait a minute, we stopped and I made the comment to Dave that, oh look, well they're following us from the front. Some of you, thanks, some of the rest of you will get that later. But Dave said, yeah, sometimes that's how people want to lead, is if you hurry up and get in front of them, then you're the leader, right? But that's not what we're necessarily talking about. But when you think about leadership, I would say exactly, I think Andy, probably I heard it the best, I think it was you that just said it, it's to provide influence, right? It's to help them along this way, to influence them, to make the best decision for who?
But then,
Yeah, that's for them. So part of your job as a leader. Now, how do we do that? How do we then influence people? How are we going to do that? By advising, good. How else?
giving all the options.
Okay, good.
Let them know the options.
Awesome, I love it. What else?
wanna bring them into agreement with you, you guys need to agree on where you're going.
Okay, and so how do we go about that?
Communicating.
Yeah, essentially it's through your number one job as a leader. So your job as an agent is to be a leader, right? Now, in terms of leading, the very best way you're going to be able to do that is through communication. Your ability to communicate, how you go about it. So we talked those that have been through in the needs analysis class, we talked a little bit about the importance of all of those pieces of communication. But just as a reminder, you've got this UCLA study, the study that was done at UCLA in terms of communication, and communication is broken down into three pieces here. So it's the words we use. What else? Those would be the
Actions. Body
Okay,
language.
so how we say it, or the tone. So the tone, the pitch, the speed, all of those things, right? And
Body language.
good. And body language. And what's the percentage? So in terms of our communication,
738.55.
so yeah, 7% of what we communicate is done in the words that we use. So remember, what we're talking about here is in a presentation. For years and years and years, I've had agents ask me, help me get what's a good listing presentation? And they want like this exact script that you're going to follow, which I'm going to give you some of that today as we go through it. But more important, or as important as all that, is as the words. I mean, that's only 7%. So still an important piece of it, but 7%. And then Pete said 38% is how you say it, right? So 38% is how you say some of the things that you say. It's the tone you use, it's an upswing or a downswing, it's all of those pieces put together, right? But then 55% is in our body language. It's how it's the subtle things. How many of you guys are reading the book, What Every Body is Saying? That's the book club that we're teaching. What's that?
I'm working on it.
Okay, good. So I think all three of the offices are reading that right now for our book club for the month, is What Everybody is Saying. As I'm reading through it, it's amazing to me. You know how sometimes you would just say, I don't know what it is about that guy, but it just, something doesn't feel right, or that gal, or whatever, that just doesn't feel right. I think part of that is tied to 55% of our communication is in our body language. It's the subtle little things that you do or that somebody else does that you just over time have learned to pick up on. Little things like maybe lifting your eyebrows. You know, I mean, if Andy walks in the room, or since Timber's smiling, so she walks in the room and I go, what did I just communicate to her?
We're excited.
Yeah, just something small as that. So there are little things that take place as part of this communication. So how we are communicating with people in terms of the words we use, the tone that we do it, and even the body language that we use as we are communicating, okay? So why I bring that up is I'm reading another book. So I've got two books I'm reading right now. The other one is John Maxwell, Everybody Communicates But Few Connect. And that's really kind of what I want to be talking about in terms of this is the words we use sometimes, I mean, that's only 7%. So the other 93% of what we are communicating to people is either the tone or the body language that we use. In this book that I'm reading right now from John Maxwell, he says, he uses a quote, and I don't know that it's that he is the one who did it or he's quoting somebody else. But regardless, what he said is, who you are speaks so loudly that I can't hear the words you're saying. So part of this, when we're talking about communicating and going on doing a presentation, really is this. Who you are as a person, how you carry yourself, how you dress, what you look like, what you say, what your mannerisms, all of those things communicate so loudly that it almost doesn't matter the words you use. Now, that's not totally true because you do have to use some of the right words, obviously, right? But who you are as a person and how you communicate is so crucial in this. So that is something that I think we need to be consistently working on, is our ability to communicate. So, okay? So with that kind of being the umbrella of what we're going to talk about today, okay? So think of it or as the envelope that we're going to talk about a bunch of things, but part of what I want you to keep in mind is this all starts with you and your leadership skills and being able to lead somebody through the process, and how you're going to do that is through how you communicate to them, okay? Are we good? Alright, so any presentation that you do needs to contain these three pieces. So there's three pieces, regardless of if you're with a seller or a buyer, doesn't matter. Any presentation that you ever do needs to be contain these things, okay? So the first one, number one, is connect. You gotta be connected to the person. You gotta build rapport with them, right? We've gotta have rapport with them or we're never gonna get anywhere, okay? I mean, can anybody give me an example of a time that maybe, whether it was with a salesperson or something, either in terms of where you connected with them or you didn't buy for somebody because there was no connection? Timber?
Well, when we were buying, or looking, I actually had an experience with somebody
Okay.
that, like, they were really patronizing, so immediately I was just shut off and I was like, I'll never work with that company again.
Okay.
You know, and so I think, like, they didn't even try, it was like, they're just telling me how I was doing it wrong.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely. So the point with that being, if there's no connection, if you don't connect or build rapport with them, it's not gonna happen. It does, which again, back to, I don't care what words you use, if you aren't connected, it doesn't matter. Okay, everybody's good, right? Okay, so number two. So after we have connected with them and built some rapport, the next step that we've got to do in any presentation is create value. We've got to create value to show that there is value. What does that mean? When you think about that, give me some examples of that. What do you mean? What do I mean by you gotta create?
You have knowledge that you can help them along somehow.
Okay, good. Yeah, so you have the knowledge. Good. What else? Yeah, that you're going to be able to help them. Ultimately, that's what we're doing, is showing them that we're going to be able to help them to accomplish whatever it is that they want to do, right? And the time they want, right? Good. What's that? Yeah, that's right. All of that. Exactly. Good. And then the third piece that we've got to make sure we have, which actually even Dallin was talking about this earlier. I don't know that you guys, I don't remember when you said this, but this morning. So you got to close. But he was just talking about that, and maybe I'll have you retell it, about somebody who used to be here that's not, that gave you a client. So tell.
So they called me. I don't know them that well, just from when we were at real estate school together a year ago. And he called me and said, "Hey, I'm not doing real estate anymore for this reason, that reason. I've been working with this guy for 8 or 9 months, just looking for places, and so here's a little bit about him. He's a good guy. You want to work with him? Sure, great." And just knowing the little I know about him and kind of his approach, he was just taking him to show houses. Look at all these houses. I'll give you all the information you want on the home. Great. And that's kind of all that's happened. And I actually asked this client how things have been going and what the process was and why he hadn't purchased something, had he been close, and trying to diagnose that. And it basically was just nobody was putting any, you don't want to put like a negative pressure on it, but closing in the right way to have them critically think and tell me why this won't work, why you're not going to want to live here, just that type of thing where, you like the house? Yeah, good. Okay, well, let's go see the next one.
Yeah.
Nobody any good.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So we've got to be able to close, because ultimately, here's the other piece that is a subtle piece of that story is, where is he today? Yeah, so this is a key component of closing. Now, and as we get into the listing presentation, I'll talk more about this, but here's what I have found works very best. For me, I've found if you can set it up with the client in the beginning, so at the start of the relationship, if you can begin the relationship with letting them know in a roundabout way of saying, I'm going to close. Now, you don't say, I'm going to close, but instead, let's use the buyer. So this example that Dallin's talking about. For me, what I want to do when I'm with a buyer is I want to sit down with them and hear what it is they're looking for in a home. And at the end of that, this is the needs analysis class. Those that have been through it, those that haven't, well, then I'll show you. But we want to go through and hear what it is that they want to buy. And then what we want to do at the end of that, after we've heard that, we're going to now ask them to sign agency. Once they sign agency, what I like to do is just to tell them, okay, now let me tell you how this is going to work. So I just explain it to them up front. Let me explain how this is going to work. We're going to go out looking for houses But we're going out to look at the houses with the purpose of being to find one for you to buy. So, what that means is when we go out and look at the houses, I like to tell them this up front before we've even gone and looked at houses. I'm gonna ask you after every single house we look at, I'm gonna just say, Carrie, do you wanna write an offer on this house? Now, what I don't want you to do is interpret that as I'm trying to push you to buy the house. And just tell them, a no is just as important as a yes to me. I'm okay if you say no. It's okay. In fact, it'll be very helpful for me if you say no because of what Dallin said, is that I can ask you, well, tell me what didn't work. Because, and I always tie it back to, I don't wanna waste your time. You know, tie it back to them of, I don't wanna waste your time going out and showing you properties that don't work. So after every house, I'm gonna ask you, do you wanna write an offer on this house? If you say no, which is totally fine, it is just for me to then find out, well, what didn't work so we don't do that again. Does that make sense? If the answer is yes, then great, we'll go back and we'll write the offer. So if you'll set it up with them at the beginning, it makes it very easy because now we go out and look at a house, I can walk out and say, hey Bill, is this a house you'd want to write an offer on?
No.
He says no? Great, all right, well, then let's talk about either, and you can do it one of two ways. If you're riding in the same car, you can say, all right, let's talk about what didn't work. Or if you're not, you can, after you've seen all the houses, say, now let's talk about these houses and what didn't work and what would need to be different and blah, 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 okay? So what if he says yes? Hey, yeah, don't do what I did early on, which was, well, we've still got 4 more houses to go see. Yeah, go write the offer, especially in today's market, right? Go write the offer. So what other answer are they going to give us besides no or yes?
Thinking, kind of thing.
Okay, good. So how do we want to handle it if they say, I don't know.
I would say, well, tell me what would have to be different for you to say yes.
Okay.
Like what does the property need to have differently? Is it something with the price? Is it something with the area? And then just trying to figure out what it is that's preventing them from saying yes enthusiastically.
Okay, good. Yeah, I love it. That's good. The other thing that I like to do is if they're unsure, so like let's say it was the first property, and so I've been out showing Bill, we come out of the first house, and I say, Bill, is this house you'd want to write an offer on? And you say, I don't know, maybe, I want to think about it, I'm not sure. Great, let's go to the next one. So we come out of the next house. I say, Bill, is this one you'd want to write an offer? And say maybe.
No, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe. Okay, so if you had to choose between the first one or the second one, which one would you choose?
The second.
And then when he says the second one, I'm going to crumple up the piece of paper of the first one, throw it in the back seat of the car, whatever. I mean, I'm joking a little bit. But essentially, okay, I just essentially want to have him keep making decisions. We go to the third house. We come out. Is this one you'd want to write an offer on?
Yes.
Oh, great. Then let's go back and do it. If he said, I don't know, I'd go, okay, well, number 2 and 3, which one's the best? Which one would be on the top of your list? Great, let's get, so you're constantly just having them evaluate, okay?
Yeah, I find some people have a hard time. I mean, this is not only with buying a house, with a lot of decision making.
Yes.
And this is assisting them on how to make a decision.
Yep.
Because some people can't make
So,
decisions.
yep, exactly. Good, Tim.
Well, that's kind of like, I'm dealing with the seller, but the seller was like, I will accept these types of loans, and then when we got an offer that was over the asking price, it was like, well, maybe I want to wait for a cash offer, because I'm not sure it's gonna appraise, and I'm like, no, this is a good situation, please don't, because you may
Because
not.
cash buyers will
Well,
pay.
and the buyer said she would walk if that happened, because she'd been in so many highest and best situations, and I was like, your buyer's gonna walk, and she is giving you an over asking price offer, if it doesn't appraise, then we can work something out, but you don't wanna wait 3 weeks, 6 weeks,
I know,
6 months
that's-
you should have just written cash then, you should
Yeah.
have only written cash on
Well,
there.
that's what I think is kind of funny is when a seller sets their price at, let's say, $250, and then you get an offer at $260 or $270, and then they're worried about it appraising. Well, who cares? You were willing to accept $250.
I
If it
know.
only appraises for $255, you still made money.
Yeah,
But-
so I think, but it was important because, and then also like, because tone and words are, because we were having a conversation over text and it was very much like, I could feel the guard, and then as soon as I talked to him, it was like, well, no, this might be, and it really gets let down when you, like the guard is let down when you have an actual conversation because you can hear the tone, you can hear.
Yeah.
But I mean, even with your seller, sometimes you have to close with your seller, you have to say,
That's right, yes.
this is good, and you,
Exactly.
don't
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
look a gift horse in the mouth,
Perfect.
and so
Yep.
I think it's just important on both sides.
If that were to happen, you just negotiate the price down to what it appraised for.
Typically, that the options are you come down to the whatever it appraised for, or the buyer has to bring in cash, which doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
It does happen. I mean, my sister actually was going to buy a for sale. This goes back a number of years ago. She was buying a for sale by owner, and it wouldn't appraise. And she called me, said, "What do I do?" And I said, "Tell the guy that's what you're going to pay." She went and told him, and he said, "Then I just won't sell. It's fine." I mean, that's some of the challenge with some for sale by owners is they're not really that motivated. And he wasn't. He was like, "Well, if I can't get that, I won't sell." So my sister said, "Well, we're just going to pay him the difference in cash above." And I was like, "That is so dumb." But here we are now. She's probably been there 10, maybe even longer than that years, and it's way worth more than what it was. And she wanted the area so bad that she was worth it. So those are really your options.
Okay.
All right. So in terms of this, now let's go a little bit deeper. So overall, and actually maybe even maybe I should even. I think I skipped one thing. So let's back up. I said we're going to go deeper. First, we're going to go up higher before we go down deeper. Okay. So really, ultimately, on a listing presentation, when you go out, there are two parts to this listing presentation. So I'm kind of coming up a little bit above this here in terms of what the seller's got to do. So when you go out on a listing presentation, there's two pieces to it. The first piece that we are doing, which is part of this connect, is, and really the value as well, but is ultimately what we're trying to get the seller to do is to choose me. So the very first decision they've got to make is to choose me. Okay, so think of our listing presentation as there's two pieces to it. First, choose me. So choose me is one side. The other side then is together. We choose what?
Price.
Good. Together, then we'll choose the price. Okay. So as we go through this and as we get into this, and I hope what my hope is that we'll get through this and have you guys do some practicing of this together. But essentially, what we're doing is we're doing two things on this in this presentation. First thing is we just got to get them to choose me. Once we're not going to discuss price at all. So make sure you hear this. Do not discuss price or commission until you've landed on you're the agent. Why? Why would I say that? Why would we not want to talk about price, commission until they first know I'm the agent?
Then you've done somebody else's job if they choose somebody else.
Okay, good.
I'm kind of locked in, yes, for great. They can't slip back if it's a discussion about price or commission. You say, well, I don't know.
Isn't it
You've already made the commitment. They've committed to you that they already like you and
Yeah.
they trust you and they want you to.
Good. Andy, then no.
When you say it that way, are you saying you need agency signed?
Oh, great question.
Before you get the price and commission?
Okay,
Because
good
price
question.
and commission is gonna come in agency.
No. You could do it that way. So in fact, let me just restate in case it's somebody watching on video. Does this mean we get agency signed before we then start talking about price? You could do it that way, but I probably wouldn't. I just want them to at least verbally tell me, yes, we have confidence in you, we trust that you can do the job. So yeah, great question, Del.
As far as that question goes, it's like super standard sales to not bring up the price first on anything. It's about building value first, and so the price doesn't necessarily matter. So if they're going to be worried about, if their first questions about commission and price, and we have to do this and that, you've just made that the focus of everything, and you're taking a back seat versus me coming in and this is what I can do for you. This is the value I bring, and then commission's not even an issue.
Yeah, go ahead. Bill.
And I think the other, spot on, I think. And then the other piece is I think you want them to know that they have a say in this.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's just it. If you do it as together, we're going to come up with the price. So I actually was listening to an agent on the phone within the last couple of weeks that the agent was on the phone with a potential seller. Now, and kind of a little bit of the backstory was the agent had met the brother. So the guy that he was on the phone with was in Minnesota or something like that, I think. The brother was here up in Farmington, actually. And the mom had just passed away a few weeks ago, so now they need to sell the mom's house. So the brother had met with the agent at the house, showed him the house, talked to him all about it, everything, which brings up another whole good point of when you're doing presentations of making sure all the decision makers are present. But so the agent's meeting with the brother talks all about the house, loves the agent, said everything's great. Now you need to talk to my brother because he's really the executor of the estate, and so you need to talk to my brother. But just call him and tell him what you told me and it'll be great. So the agent gets on the phone. I happen to be there, so I listened to it. The agent gets on the phone, is talking to the brother, explaining, hey, I met with your brother, and here's the key. And in fact, this is, I didn't even intend for this, but I think this is a key piece when we talk about communication here, is making sure you really listen. And don't just listen to the words, but listen to the tone that they're using and things. Because, and I didn't even intend to this, but on the phone, as I was listening to this phone call, when he said to the brother in Minnesota, I met with your brother out at the house, he asked me to give you a call, and I can't remember exactly what his response was, but his response was essentially what he was saying. He didn't say this, but what he was really saying is, this is going to be interesting then. I picked up immediately that there's some animosity between the two brothers. So what I gathered just like that really quickly was the brother here was like all about let's get this thing sold so I can get my money. The brother there was more in terms of I'm going to do it the way that at the speed that I want to do, not at his pace. But the agent didn't pick up on that, and so immediately just started going into talking and talking and talking. So make sure you really are listening, not thinking about the next thing you're going to say, but really listening to what they're saying. Because had he listened, he would have been able to go, okay, I got to slow this down a little. But and in fact, I tried to even get his attention. It was on speakerphone, so I couldn't really say much. But I tried to get his attention, like slow it down, calm down, because he was like, and I think maybe partially because I was listening, was wanting to show like how good, if that makes sense. So he is just being really aggressive, like almost trying to close before he had connected and built the value. And he didn't pick up on what this guy was saying. And along the way, though, the brother, the guy in Minnesota, says, well, what's your commission? And he says, it's 7% plus a $5.95 admin fee. And the guy goes, whoa. And it was like, so to your point, it was lost because from that point on, it was all about the commission, not about building the value.
So what do you say? How do you respond to that question without telling your commission?
Okay, great question. So what do you guys think? How would you want to respond? So if they said over the phone, this is another key, even with like a for sale by owner or something, well, what's your commission? How do you respond?
I generally just approach it if that's something that I'm happy to discuss with you. If you choose me as your agent, we'll come to an agreement, something that's fair.
Okay, good. So yeah, one of the things you could say is, and ultimately, I've got a number of different answers. So one of them I think is a good thing of saying is, so do you feel like I'm the right guy to help you get your home sold? And if they say yes, then great. Then yeah, awesome. We can sit down and we can talk about it. But what are they going to say over the phone? When he said that to this agent, I almost said the agent's name. When the guy said that to this person, had he said, well, at first I guess I really need to know, are you confident that I'm the agent that you are going to use to get the home sold? What do you think he would have said, the guy in Minnesota?
No.
Yeah, he would have said no. Okay, well, so then really, it almost doesn't matter what my commission is. Because stop and think about that for a minute. So using Timbra's example, when she said somebody across the hall that there was no way you were going to do anything with them, what if they would have said, I'll do it for free?
I still wouldn't have because he was a jerk.
See, so that's my point, is if I'm not the right person, does it really matter what my commission is?
No.
Because if you don't feel like I can do the job, if you don't trust me, if you don't feel like I'm capable, then I could probably even offer to pay you and you would still say, forget it, right?
Because you're roped into a relationship and you have to deal with the person all the time. And it's really not, that's the reality. I would have to have like frequent discussions with that person and I didn't want to
do it,
be
right?
in their presence.
So the other thing that I've said, Andy, in the past, when that question comes up over the phone is, you know what, actually my commission goes anywhere from 0 to, and the upper end you can say whatever you want. I usually just said, I've charged people from 0 to 8% in terms of a commission. But I can't really answer that question right now of what the commission is gonna be, because it depends on what what you're trying to accomplish, and I don't even know that I'm the right guy to help you. So when I say zero, that's what I mean by it, is the reason I'm gonna charge you zero is I'm not the right person to help you, so I'm not gonna charge you anything. You know, in fact, I'll gladly leave without you paying me anything. So I don't know if that helps, but I say, you know what, really, it could be anywhere from 0 to 8%. It just kind of depends on what you expect from me. So really, that's the very reason that we need to get together, because until I know what it is that you want, need, or expect, I can't really answer that question. So what works best, afternoons or evenings?
Okay.
So does that help?
Yes.
Okay. So ultimately, now, keep that in mind as we drill down on this now too. Okay. So question or strategy? Okay. So connect. When we connect, so first thing with that, remember, we got to build rapport, we got to get to know the people, okay? We got to have them start to feel safe. Ultimately, that's really where we're trying to go with this when I say connect, is we got to get them to feel safe and comfortable that we are the right person to do it, okay? Value. How are we going to build value? What are some things we could do to create the value with them?
Market statistics.
Okay, good. So market statistics in terms of what?
The seller maybe absorption rate, if they're a buyer, maybe interest rates, it just depends.
Okay, good. So what would sharing those statistics do? How is that going to help to build value?
It's good.
Yeah, that you know what's going on, right? Good. What else?
I was just gonna say, that's a little bit of a struggle right now for people who are wanting to sell and buy, because you're trying to, I feel like I talked to somebody this week and it's like,
You're pushing both sides.
yeah, because you're
Yeah.
like, this is a great time for sellers, by the way, it's gonna be really
It's
hard
going to
for you
really
find
suck
out.
as a buyer, yeah.
And so because I was talking to somebody yesterday and it was like that, like, that's kind of scary to hear, but it's a great time for you to sell, so you wanna get an apartment for 6 months?
Yeah, but guess what? When it's the opposite, it's a great time to be buying. It's a horrible time to be a seller. And so,
Yeah,
Well, and what I've been saying lately, you know, as far as the seller, it's easy to talk to a seller, but with the buyer, I think the reason so many, part of it is the inventory is so low is because interest rates have been so good for so long, it's incentivized people to continue to buy, that it is a good time to be a buyer because you're getting these great loans, you're getting great programs, and there's some amazing things you can do from a buyer's perspective. So even though it's considered a seller's market, it's a great time to buy as well.
yeah,
And
and
so,
I've been definitely saying, like, telling people, it's just hard to find,
sure.
I mean, there's
Okay.
incentives, but it's hard to
Sure.
find stuff.
To me, it's an easy obstacle to overcome. You tell them you're a proactive agent, you're gonna go
Yeah.
out the neighborhood they want, you'll find a physical, whatever you gotta do, that having an agent like you, you're gonna go get them the house.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, I think if you.
Hey,
do
stop
that-
and think about that, really, in terms of what Bill's saying. If you want to avoid multiple offers, go knock on the door and just find a seller that figure out first what your buyer's looking for in a home. Go knock on those, go find houses that fit that and knock on the door and say, my buyer wants to live in this neighborhood. They want a house like yours. What would it take? You know, at what price would you be willing to sell your home?
Or find an abandoned
Yeah, find an abandoned home. Yeah,
That's
find
what
one
we'll
that's
be doing today.
But stop and think about that for a minute. I mean, really, truthfully, when you're out door knocking, every seller really is a seller. I mean, every door you knock on is a seller. It's just at what price? I mean, because I would sell my house for the right price. So, but why I bring that up though is because, believe it or not, there are some people that if you said, well, what price would you be interested in selling, and they tell you the price, it might actually be what their house is worth. And you could say, well, you know what, I might actually have a buyer that's willing to do that. So let's just sit down and do some paperwork if you really are serious, and we can do that. Okay, good. So how else can we create value? So through our knowledge, what we know, good. What else?
What we're willing to do.
Okay, so say more about what we're willing to
Well,
do.
kind of like what we're saying here, I'm willing to go knock in the neighborhood that you're interested in because there's nothing for sale, but I bet somebody will sell for the right price.
Okay, good. What else? Good, yeah, right on. What else?
Century 21, the brand.
Yeah, the brands.
Okay, good. So yeah, really, say that again?
Photos.
Yeah, so ultimately, think of this in terms of the value piece of this. What we're talking about in terms of the value is ultimately we're separating ourselves. When I say separating ourselves, I mean the company, Century 21, but also you as an individual agent. So you want to have for yourself, what is it that separates you from the competition? Why should somebody list their house with you? For real. And you need to actually, I'm not gonna do it for the sake of time, but ultimately you really should stop and make a list. For real, why should somebody actually list their house with you versus Lance or Zach? I mean, really, why? And come up with a list of things so that you can then talk about that. But some of it would be the communication. I love one of the ways that George talks about it. Everybody uses the MLS, but I just use it better. I mean, every agent has it, I just use it better. Come up with how do you use it better. Photos. I mean, we've looked, remember on the CMA class, I mean, you've seen some of the quality of photos. Stop and think about that. You're paying this person $12,000 to put photos like that up there? Yeah, or even when it's $30,000 or $60,000 in commission and you get that kind of a photo, I mean, wow. So, separate yourself. That's how we create this value, is by building the rapport, separating ourselves from the competition. What are the things that you're going to do that will separate you, okay? And then obviously the close. So, okay, so with that, let's jump in and let's go through the process now. And I know you guys have seen this, but sometimes seeing it and actually owning it is not necessarily the same thing. So now that we're there at the house, you want to start with the intro. What's the intro? What do we do?
Introduce ourselves, handle business.
Okay, good.
Thank them for their
Okay,
time.
good. That's where I'm going, is the thank. Then what?
Acknowledge.
Good. Glad you're here. Now sit on the front row next time. So acknowledge them, and
Will you do like a couple minutes of who you are and who they are, like finding out about each other?
yes, but I would do this first. So
I don't know what the technical term for here, we call it, where I learned the safe island technique, but it's explaining the process.
okay, yeah.
What
So
you're not to do.
so here's I'm gonna what we like to call it here is promise. So think of it as tap, T-A-P. You want to tap. We want to thank them. We want to acknowledge them, and then we want to promise. And then maybe as even a little footnote to that is if it's you. Now you only want to do this if it's your personality and it makes sense, but is to throw in maybe even some humor in there. Okay. So if I were sitting down and so Lance, you're my seller. I want to start by just saying, hey Lance, I want to just thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. I know there are tons of other things, so that's the thing, the acknowledge. I know there's tons of other things probably you'd rather be doing than sitting down and meeting with me for the next 4 hours, but I promise you that at the end of that, you're going to find some value in it. Yeah. So obviously when I said you should only do humor if it's you and it works, it obviously did not just work with you. So, because are we going to be there for 4 hours?
No.
No. So you might want to say that, and if they don't respond, you could kind of go, I was totally joking about the 4-hour thing. Look, if the only reason I'll be here longer than maybe 45 minutes is if you got a ton of extra questions. But beyond that, we're going to make this quick. So make sure you thank them, acknowledge the house. I want to thank you for taking the time to meet with me and let me come out and see your beautiful home that you have, if it is a beautiful home, and all these great things that you've done with your home, whatever. So just acknowledge them, the property, whatever. And look, I promise you, you're going to get some value out of what we end up talking about today. And then, like I say, if it makes sense, throw some humor in there. If it doesn't, then don't worry about it. So, and then the next piece is what we call game plan. So what you're talking about. So if this were number 1, number 2 down here is going to be our game plan. Now, when we say game plan, what we want to be doing is basically laying out for them what's going to take place. So what we want to do is we want to thank, acknowledge, and promise them. Tell them, hey, thanks for taking the time. I know you're really busy, and I appreciate you being willing to meet with me, and I promise I'm going to give you some great information or make it some type of a commitment. We could even say a promise or a commitment. So something that you're going to commit to doing. That's spelled wrong. 2 lines. So, and I commit to making sure that it's well worth your time. Something like that, okay? Then the next piece is we're going to talk about the game plan. So ultimately what that would look like is I'm going to say, okay, I just want to kind of give you an overview of what we're going to talk about for the next 4 hours, okay, as we meet, okay? Yeah, thanks, Alan. Okay, so what's the first thing we want to talk to them about is needs, wants, and expectations. Okay? So I'm going to thank them, acknowledge, promise, and then I'm going to say, okay, as we go through and talk right now, what I wanna do is spend a few minutes with you. First what we'll do is I'm gonna spend a few minutes, yes, this should be a letter A, huh? First, what we're gonna do is spend a few minutes talking about, what you need, what you want, and probably just really the most important thing is what you expect. And then I also want to talk about what I would expect from you as a seller. So we want to talk together about what you're going to expect of me, but I'm going to share with you what I will expect of you as well. Then, what would we do next? What's the next step? I probably should know that. I should just ask Andy. What's next? Just do that. But
CMA, that's listed.
okay, so actually before that, we're going to do one thing first. So next thing we're going to do is these pieces here are in terms of the connecting and building value. The next step in the process is what we want to do is be able to separate ourselves. So, say that again?
Marketing strategy.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about marketing basically, but I'm going to put in parentheses here. Separate. We're going to separate ourselves. We want to separate the company. We want to talk about the marketing pieces and things like that we're going to do. Another thing we could actually throw in here is call this the plan of action. Okay? So this is what our plan of action is going to look like. We're going to talk about. Okay? Then after that, C here is going to be the market. So this is what Bill was talking about. We want to talk about the market. And in terms of the market, what we want to talk about is like the overall or the global market, the macro, that's probably the way to call it, is the macro. What's going on in terms of the real estate market just in general? And when I'm saying macro, just in the whole country even really. I mean, start kind of big, and then we'll drill down to 2 here would be the micro or local market. And then finally, 3 here is the CMA. Okay? Did I leave something out? Oh, and in terms of the marketing here, the other thing I would throw in here is pricing strategy. It's a pricing strategy. Okay? Yeah, so when you're saying marketing, but I just want to make sure. So when we talk about marketing, we're going to talk about separating ourselves, what we're going to do, but then also in terms of our pricing strategy, how that's going to work. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay, then D is going to be close. Okay? Now, here's what I've noticed. A lot of times agents get confused at what we're talking about here. Now, so let me back up for a minute and just explain. We're going to start by saying, I want to thank you, I want to acknowledge, I want to promise you, we'll maybe throw some humor in there. Then this part here is just giving them the game plan. I'm not actually doing this stuff right now. This is just to give them what the game plan is. Does that make sense? So let me run you through it. Basically what I would want to say is, okay, thanks for taking the time. I know you're busy. I promise it'll be worth your time. Let me just kind of give you an overview of what we're going to do today. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about what your expectations, so your needs, your wants, what you expect from me, and then also what I would expect from you as a seller. After we have talked about that, then we're going to talk about some of the marketing and a plan of action. We'll talk about what we're going to do and how we do it. We'll talk also about the pricing and how pricing this home right to begin with, and making sure that we follow a strategy of getting your home sold, because we know those things. Then after that, provided that you feel good about me being your agent and you're comfortable that I know what I'm doing and that I can help you and that you're comfortable with that, then from there we will talk about the market, and we'll get into what's going on in terms of the greater market, the local market, and then specifically a CMA for your house. Now, at the end of that, as long as you're comfortable with me, so remember this is where we choose me, then together we'll choose the price. So as long as you're comfortable with all that, then I'm going to ask you to sign a contract. Does that sound good? They say yes, sounds great. So remember, I set it up right here in the beginning. I'm going to ask you to sign a contract with me at the end of this if everything goes good. Okay, that makes it very easy at the end to then ask them how to do this. See, the best way to close is a great presentation, making sure that your presentation's good. So after I've done all this, then I'm going to go over here to number 3 and ask questions. So this here, even though I've got it as 2A, really is where number 3 is going to take place. Did you follow me? So then I'm going to come, after I've said all this, then I'm going to come up to here and start doing this needs, wants, and expectations. Does that make sense? So, what would be some great questions that I would ask? And here's what I'll tell you. You need to have the first 3 questions you're going to ask them basically written down. And I'll give you some ideas, but first, tell me what you guys think. What would be some great questions that we would want to ask that would help us to know what their needs, wants, and expectations are? Tim?
Why do you need to set it up?
Okay.
Why do you want to set
Okay, great. Yeah. Why? Help me understand why we're here today. What is it? What is it that you wanted to talk about in terms of getting your home sold? Why are you doing this? Which here's another way of thinking about this in terms of this game plan. Let me even throw it this way. You call it MAP. What we're going to discover during these questions is their motivation, their ability to sell, and then the pricing too. So that's another way. So good. Why have you decided to sell the home? What else? What other questions would be great to ask? Sell it.
What are your expectations of me as an agent?
Okay.
Getting your home sold.
Perfect. Yeah, that'd be a great question to throw in there. So first, we could use Timbra's of why have you decided to sell the home? What is driving this? What's taking place? Second, then, would be what would you expect from me as an agent? Tell me what you're going to expect. Good.
Well, kind of along that question of what your motivation is, what your plan is afterwards, to see if there's a need for you to help them find a home as well, or kind of what the plan is for them to set up the sell.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, that's going to be the next thing is yes. So assuming that you get this home sold, what's your next step? What is where are you going? What are you going to do? Now, Dallin brought up we want to be looking for can we then help them, which is huge. We want to for sure do that. In addition to that though, I'm amazed at how many agents though they go out and ask the question of what's driving this, and the person says, well, I got a job transfer, or I just got a new job, or we want to move closer to family. I mean, whatever it is that they say, and then because it's going to Minnesota or some other state, the agent just goes, oh, all right then, well let's get going on talking about getting your home sold. What else could we do if they said they're moving to Florida? What do we not want to forget?
To refer them.
Yeah, an outgoing referral. I mean, to just say, great, have you already found somebody there that is helping you? If not, one of the advantages of being with Century 21 Everest is we are a primary broker for Cardis relocation, which this would be a great piece when we talk over here about value and separating yourself from the competition. There are 2 primary brokers in the state of Utah. We're one of them. So we are part of that. Go ahead.
Yeah, that happened to my husband and I. One of our neighbors, that's my ward, she sold her, my husband sold her home, and I kept saying, oh, you should get Dave, Dave would refer you to someplace in Baltimore, Maryland, and she goes, oh, no. And then David explained that it is no cost, because sometimes people think, oh, it's going to cost me money, and I don't want to spend any more money. So I think sometimes when people say no, they don't know that it doesn't cost money.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yes, great point. Is letting them know. And here's the other advantage too. The other advantage to you sending them as an outgoing referral like that is you can say to the relocation department, you can tell Cardis, I want the agent to call me before they call the client. You can somewhat interview them to find out. The other thing you can tell the client, which this is huge, make sure you do this, because I've watched a lot of agents miss out on an outgoing referral because they don't do this, is telling them, if anything goes bad, if you have any hiccups along the way, any struggles, please let me know. Because if for whatever reason, part of being an agent for Cardis on their relocation team, the agent has to be an experienced agent. So for you guys to get onto the relocation team, you first have to have been 2 years as an agent, and you've got to have some other experience and stuff. So it's not just, we don't just throw just anybody and everybody that wants to be there on the relocation team. So it's important to tell the client that, look, this agent should be a really good agent. Now, is it possible that maybe
having a bad day.
having a bad day, bad year, bad life, whatever, maybe. And in that case, let me know, because if there's a problem, I can go right to Cardis and say, we need a new agent.
Yeah, David, I think he's already talked to the new agent.
Yeah,
And so they can just go right over there.
Yeah, so we can get a new agent. If you don't do that, they'll get frustrated and they'll just go find a new agent and then you don't get paid.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can, when you're making an order or request, you put in a message, please have an agent call
Yep.
first.
Have the agent contact you first.
Because I had a guy that was excited, our relocation department spoke with him. The next day, the agent called me and said, hey, the guy didn't know who I was, hung up on me. You know, and I tried to call, he wouldn't talk to me either. So I think the agent, I don't know, coached it wrong.
Could be, yeah. It's possible, yeah. So, okay, good, so good. That was a little sidebar to what we're really talking about, but good. What else? What other questions?
Well, I mean, kind of just went on this list, needs, wants, and expectations, like, kind of what you're wanting, I mean, like, kind of what you're.
Yeah, so now here's the key. Those that have been through the needs analysis class, remember the difference? That a lot of times what happens though is back to this communication, the way that we communicate a lot of times blocks people from being willing to share from us. If you're asking yes, no questions, you're not gonna be getting a whole lot of connection. You're not gonna be able to build a lot. Yeah, you wanna be using more of the directives. Remember, our brain works like a computer. If I give you an instruction set, your brain's gonna respond accordingly. So asking the questions, when you ask these questions, you always want to start the questions with a tell me about or share with me, describe for me. You always want to start your questions something like that. No, don't ask yes or no questions, because then it puts into this 20 questions game where did you guys see me do the pass the baton thing?
Yes.
Couple? Yeah, I mean, if you want a good exercise in what communication looks like have a conversation with somebody, but the rule is the only person that can talk is the one holding like the pen. I just call it pass the baton. But it's interesting to watch a conversation when you do that. And why I say that is if you're asking yes, no questions, if I say, so have you decided to sell your home?
Yes.
Now the pressure's back on me. I got to get to think of the next question. Versus if I say, so Pete, tell me what has had you decide to get your home sold. And then he's now going to start to talk to me and tell me, and I go, wow, that's interesting. Say more about that. See, I just keep handing it back to him. If you were going to take a test, would you rather take an open book test or a closed?
Open.
So, okay, one person would prefer an open book test. The rest of you want closed?
No test.
Oh, no test for that one, okay. So, but if you were going to do that, all of us obviously would rather have an open book test, right? This is how we get the answers to the test. So when you are with a seller, what we want to be doing is asking these, so tell me what are you going to expect from the agent you list with? And then they're going to tell you. I mean, they're giving you the answers to, if you want my business, this is what you got to do. Go ahead.
I like open-ended questions because as soon as they start talking about themselves, they build that relationship of trust with you, and everyone loves to talk about themselves. Anyway, like I've been calling for sell-by owners, and I would say, well, share with me, maybe tell me about your home, where do you want to go, and, just having those open-ended, they form that trust.
Yeah, people like to talk, right? They love to talk about their house or themselves, those type of things, right? So the more you can get them opened up and starting to share, the better. Question, Karen? Okay. So on these questions, so listen, here's how this needs to work. You should have at least your first 3 questions. So I wrote down a few of them. Let me find here. So here's some of the things that you could do. So share with me or tell me about your decision to getting your home sold. Even though I'm saying do open-ended, it's occasionally you're going to do some closed-ended questions, which one of them might be, have you absolutely decided to sell your home? Have you absolutely decided that you are going to move? Yes, great. So share with me then what you would expect from me as an agent. Okay, so have you made the decision to sell your home? Or do you absolutely have to sell this home? So, and George likes to say his first question, so this might be a good one to write down, because this is one that George said he always used. First question is, what are you ultimately trying to accomplish? So in selling your home, what is it that you're ultimately trying to accomplish? I think that's a great question because you're getting them to tell you what's the end game. What is it that we're trying to do here, okay? So ultimately the questions you want to ask should be around the motivation, so what's causing it, their ability, and the pricing, okay, talking to them. So share with me what you know in terms of the price or some of those things, okay? Awesome. Any questions on the questions? Yeah, but listen, here's the key with this, and let me tell you, here's what I have found. Most agents don't spend enough time in this area, right there. You gotta get a good conversation going and asking them, getting them to open up and to share with you some of their fears. And the thing is, what it should come down to, here's probably how you know you've got it, is in terms of these questions, it should come down to something that has to do with family, something that's either saving money or a job. Ultimately, here's probably the best way of thinking about it is that you know you've got what you need to get when the answer is not about selling the home. It's about, you know what, my concern with this, another great question, share with me what your biggest concern is in getting the home sold. I mean, that's another great question, okay? Tell me what's important about the price. That's another great question. Another one, tell me what's important about the timing. How is the price going to affect your decision? How will the timing affect your decision? Meaning, if somebody came along and maybe wasn't offering you a full price, but they could meet your deadline, how would you feel about that? What would your thoughts be? Those type of things. Does that make sense? So ultimately, this should get you to something that has nothing to do with about like selling the house. It should be about the family and getting them to where we need to be. Those type of things. Does that make sense? You guys follow me? Okay, so that's how, just my experience is most agents do not spend enough time in this area, okay? Once we have done that, the very last question, which would somewhat lead us into this marketing piece here, this plan of action and stuff, is going to be, so number 4 for me would be, I'm going to call it plan of action here, but think of it this way. Essentially what this number 4 is going to be for me is really the very last question I'm going to ask up here. So the very last question I'm going to ask them is, so what else do you need to know from me? What other concerns or what questions do you have for me in terms of how you feel about me being able to get the home sold? Does that make sense? I mean, ultimately, what I'm finding out, when I write down plan of action here, for years and years and years, and Will, does everybody know Will Cooper?
Hey guys.
Okay, so yeah, Will is a good friend of mine over the last, I don't know how many years, a lot of years, so I've gotten to know him. But Will, in your experience, agents always want, and if you don't agree with this, tell me, but
Okay.
I've just, in my 20 years and in 12 years of training new agents, I was like, I need a good listing presentation. I need a packet of stuff to take out to show them. Everybody wants to have, I need a good looking presentation of stuff to give to them, which basically would be this plan of action. But here's what I'll tell you. If you do this part right, you don't need any stuff. I mean, would you agree? You don't need stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's because in the beginning, we feel, I guess it's natural because it's new for you guys to feel like there's this, I've got to bring everything that the company has.
Yeah.
And my job is to go through, let me show you how, here, I'll come up here. Okay.
Yeah, come up here.
Sorry.
Get on camera.
Oh, okay, we're on camera right now. Okay,
It's
yeah,
not as
so
fancy as yours. It's true.
we don't have multiple
No.
edits here and a great
No
backdrop.
green screen.
Yeah, I think it's because in the beginning, we want to say, oh my gosh, I chose Century 21 Everest for all these things we have, and it's amazing. So my job today is the meeting with you is I'm going to start with item 1, and I'm going to go through all of these things we have, as if that's going to sell them. Russ is right. I mean, we need to ask better questions, and then naturally just start solving the problems that they come up with. Can I add something to the question thing? You ask it, then you write it down because it's important. You probably teach that somewhere else. But you write that down because it's important. So you say, what is the ultimate objective you're trying to accomplish? They start talking, I start writing. What am I saying to you when I start writing? What am I communicating for you?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand. I'm listening.
And I don't want to forget it. Because if we are on the same page on the ultimate goal, then you can trust me and I have value to you in helping you get that ultimate goal accomplished. Now there's one more piece to it, then write out to the site. So we ask, we write it down, and then we restate it. And that's coming later because that's the answers to the questions that Russ said.
Yep.
Okay?
Perfect. Thanks, Will. All right. So let me actually, as we transition then here from these questions to this plan of action. Here's the question that I think you want to ask them, and I think this would be good to write this down. So this would be, and in fact, well, write it down, and then I'll tell you what it's going to take. All right. Now that I understand what it is you want, so now that they've explained all this, so you can say it is, now that I understand what it is you want, or you need, or you expect, okay? So now that I understand what it is that you want, and again, you could say it as, or what you need, or what you expect. Now that I understand that, which, so do comma, which isn't to sell the home, it is blank. So this is where what Will was just talking about. So if they've talked about, it's about getting the family all together, we're going to be separated, I'm going to be down there working the job, my wife's back here taking care of the kids, I'm worried about their safety or, whatever, I just, my kids don't do good if I'm there, whatever it is. So you're going to be saying, now that I understand what it is you want, which really isn't selling the home, it's getting your family all together in Florida, being back together again as a family, right? They say yes. So this is where we're giving them the answer to the quiz. The question that I have for you, so that would be the next thing I'd say. The question I have for you is, how do you feel about me in being able to help you get your home sold? On a scale of 1 to 10. So the question I have for you is, how do you feel about me on a scale of 1 to 10 on getting your home sold? Now, what are we looking for them to say? Yeah, what if they say, I don't know, 7 or an 8? What are they if they tell you a 7 or an 8, what are they telling you?
They're not confident with you.
Yeah, it's remember where we started this whole thing. Choose me, then together we'll choose the price, right? So if they say anything but a 10, what are they telling you? They haven't chosen me yet, right? Now, it is possible that there are some people out there that's like, I don't care how good you are, I'll never give you a 10, right? So if that's the case, that's fine. How we deal with that though is we want to just say, now that I understand what it is that you want, which really isn't getting your home sold, it's getting the family all together down in Florida again with the new job and settled and everything's back to normal, so to speak, right? Now that I understand that, help me understand, how do you feel about me in terms of being your agent and getting the job done and getting your home sold? On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say? And then whatever the number is. Anything but a 10. So if they say anything except for a 10, then what you want to say is, okay, help me understand what is it that you don't know, or what is it that I haven't answered for you that will help us get to me being a 10? And then what are they going to say?
Whatever it is.
Yeah, if there is nothing, if there is nothing, they're going to say, I don't know, I can't really think of anything else. Or they may say, well, I guess I still am just wanting to know what your commission is. If I knew what your commission was, then it'd be a 10.
Or your commission is too high.
Well, but I haven't talked about commission yet, remember? So if they've asked, which great point though, if they've asked the commission question along the way, we want to say, we're going to get to that, and I promise you that we're going to get to that, but we first need to deal with, am I the right person? So if they want to start talking commission, you could say, well, before we get into that, I first need to know, am I the agent? Am I the right person that you want to help you in getting your home sold?
Yeah.
You are? Great. Well, then let's talk about it, okay? But if not, if they, well, no, I don't know. Well, great. Then let's put that off we're going to deal with it, but let's put it up on the shelf for a minute, because I first need to know, what is it that you don't know about me or I haven't answered? What questions do you still have about me that I haven't answered?
I like George's like, is it safe to assume that if we can get that concern reconciled, then we'll work together?
Yeah, so if there
Because if
is
you have
one,
5 concerns you wanna know, because you don't want it to just be like
Is there
a chasing
anything
game.
Yep.
Is there
That's
anything
right.
else? And then,
perfect.
so
That's
I
right.
think that's.
Yeah, you got it. That's exactly right. Is what we want to be able to do is so if I said, so what is it that's keeping me from being a 10 in your mind? What is it? What else do I need to answer? What other questions do you have? What other things do we need to talk about? If they've got some things for me, and then yeah, I'm gonna find out what else? I'm gonna do all that. Keep going. Tell me more. What else? Keep going. What else? And I want to get all those things answered. So here's the point. Don't move on to the next step until we know, yes, I'm the right person. So now, so when I say plan of action, let's kind of just talk about a few things, which I think I asked you guys the question, but I didn't write it down. But when this plan of action, what we're going to talk to them about is we want to talk to them about communication. So when I say that, we want to talk to them about our plan of action in terms of communication. What is that? What do I mean by that? How often should we be communicating with our seller?
Once a week.
Yeah, at least once a week, right? So what I want to be telling them, so up here a great question would be, tell me what you expect in terms of communication. How often do you want to be communicated with? They'll tell you. Then down here, so essentially this plan of action is where we're going to answer all this stuff up here.
Just let them know we're gonna do exactly what they want. It's important.
You got it. Yeah. See, essentially what we're doing is we're getting all the answers to the test here, and then we're now going to tell them, here's the answers to the test. Yeah, tell me what you expect in terms of communication, and they tell you. Then down here, I'm going to say, well, guess what? I'm going to call you once a week, and I'm going to update you on everything that has gone on during the last week. I mean, obviously, you'll know if anyone's seen your house or not, right? Unless the house is vacant and there's somewhere else. But you'll know that. But we're going to call back, and I'm going to tell you about the feedback that we've gotten. So one of the things that I'm going to do, see, remember, this is where we're separating ourselves from most agents. See, here's what most agents do, but here's what I'm going to do. So most agents just might not even follow up with an agent that's shown your home. I'm going to call them and get feedback. Tell me what didn't work for your clients. And then I'm going to call you once a week and say, hey, as you know, Pete, we had 4 showings. Here's what the people said. The first agent didn't call me back. Unfortunately, that happens. Agents don't call you back, so I never got a call back from them. So I don't know what happened. But the other 3, they said, you know, that carpet, that's the shag carpet you've got from the 70s, they don't like it. So we probably want to think about making a change with that or whatever it is. Okay, so we're going to talk about communication. Any of the things they've talked about up here is what we're going to talk about down here. And here's what the answer is. Here's what I'm going to do for you. So, go ahead.
Well, if I've spent all this time with somebody, I don't feel like I'm going to interview 30 people. So what percentage of the time do you feel like people are actually going to say no at the end?
Well, if you do this right, if you'll follow what we're teaching you here, it's going to be pretty low that you're going to say no. Because ultimately I'm not going on from here until I get a yes, you're the agent. Because I just want to keep dealing with, well, what other questions do you have? What other concerns?
Well, and I think that kind of minimizes like the nervousness or whatever about whether or not you're going to get the listing, which sometimes can just help in your flow of the presentation, because I feel like once you've invited somebody into your home, like there's already rapport, there's already trust, and so there aren't going to be that many times that after you reconcile some concerns, they're going to be like, sorry.
According to NAR, so NAR, I've shown you guys the NAR survey that they do, and if I haven't, you'll see it in other classes, but NAR does a survey every year. According to that, 66% of all sellers interview one person. So 2/3 of the time, the seller is going to interview one person. Then, and I don't remember the exact number for the number that interviewed 2 people, but it drops drastically. I mean, you think about it, you've only got 33% left, and I think it numbered up to 4 or 5 agents that they interviewed, and it's such a sliver that, yeah, very, very few. Most of the time, yeah, you're gonna.
This reminds me when I was trying to sell my house and I was interviewing agents. And something it's interesting is that this lady showed up, an agent, real estate agent, showed up to my house, and she was just really overly friendly, which I thought, oh, she's nice and everything. And then she got in her car, and her car broke down, and I'm thinking, this you know, the first thing I was thinking, this woman isn't very organized, because she was a bit scattery, you know? And I did sign up with her, but I ended up buying her after a couple of weeks and just never seemed to get together. And it's interesting is that first meeting, it was something inside me saying, no, don't hire her, but she's really nice. It's that gut feeling that you have. You know? I don't know, it's just interesting.
Yeah.
Show up organized, I think.
Yeah,
Don't let
for
your
sure,
car break down.
for sure. Okay, so we good on this, so we're not gonna, what, this plan of action is just gonna be the answer, I mean, if it's, we're gonna talk about pictures. Now, here's the key, here's the struggle that I have with training this, is, and it's back to, you want a list, like a checklist of, okay, here's the stuff we gotta talk to about them. And I would say, you know, for sure communication probably would be one that you absolutely need to talk to them about. But like, I watched a manager one time, which I don't know if you were there for this or not, Will, but this was a different company. But the president of the company had asked the manager to do a listing presentation, to do it, and he showed up at our manager meeting, sat down, he had a binder that was probably like this many pages thick of two of these books together, and his presentation was, I mean, now this wasn't that long ago that this happened. So it, like, the binder could kind of fold out so you could set it there. It was designed for like showing, it was what we used 20 years ago when we started. And he went through like page by page. Here's what Cardis is, here's what Cardis does, here's da-da-da. You know who I'm talking about?
No, you don't need to tell me.
I want to, later. Because I think you'll appreciate it. So, and it's on video, so I probably should be careful.
Right.
But so anyway, but he like went through this, it was like, I'm covering every single thing in this book, no matter what. And the key to doing this, I mean, seriously, have you ever been to a presentation like that where the person was like, I'm covering all of this stuff in here, I don't care what you say.
All you're thinking about is where they are in the book.
Yeah, like how soon is this gonna be over? Or should I just shoot myself now?
So actually, the agents here have a small presentation, nowhere near what the site you're talking about, maybe 15, 20 pages, laminated, that's in their binder, and they take that with them on their listing presentations. Are you against, in your opinion, no?
Okay, great question. Yeah, I'm not saying don't have some of those things. What I think it's a great idea to maybe have some of those things, and you can get this off 21 Online. In fact, it's a brand new thing that's a CMA toolkit that's on 21 Online. It's actually pretty cool. But again, there's so much information I would never want to use it. So I think having it there, and if one of their, remember we're taking a test and we're getting the answers to the test up here. If one of the answers to what they're saying here falls in this, then use it.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what my experience is, if you do it right, it really has nothing to do with what marketing you're gonna do. It really all boils down to, do I feel safe with you that you are going to take care of me and not take advantage of me and you're gonna help me get to Florida with the family. Ultimately, that's really what we're trying to do. Go ahead, Tom.
I think, because I had that same initial reaction as far as I wanted some presentation, something.
Yeah.
I think most of us do, but what it turns into is that's your presentation rather than I've got some visuals to support my presentation.
Exactly. Thank you.
It's like my presentation is this, and if I've got this to demonstrate something or to show you what we do, but otherwise I think so many people fall into early on that this is the presentation, everything else takes a back seat.
That's right. And if you'll do it the other way around, which is exactly what you said, first find out what's important to them. What do they need, want, and expect? Then on our plan of action is, here's how I'm going to help you meet those needs, wants, and expectations that you have. And this is the supporting material to back that up versus the other way around. You want to say something?
Yeah, I
Come
got
on.
a thought here, and I'm trying to make sure I kind of like you're hesitant on saying some of these things because you don't want to make, I don't want them walking out going, I got to take things, and that's the whole
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah.
I do like, do you know an alternate close? What's an alternate close? I'll say, I'll ask the question, so make the statement. What's the alternate close? Who wants to give you the definition?
Like a trial close?
No, not a trial close, like I'm testing to see if everything's okay.
Yeah.
But no, so there's alternate. What would that mean then?
Getting two options.
I have two options, right? Okay, so what I bring along on this issue of what I bring along. There's been times, not every time, but there's been times where I take samples of something. Okay? Because it just gives me another alternate close. And it also can bring credibility to a young agent, and that's what put me on the top. That's why I'm going to say this. The presentation is not the samples. Do you get that? Like we should repeat that. The presentation is not the samples.
It's not the presentation.
Thank you. That's for my own benefit. I'm not on camera.
No, you're
Okay. So, the presentation is not the samples, but the samples give you an alternate close, and it also gives you credibility as a new agent. Because you can just go into marketing and say, well, give me a couple of samples of just listed, just sold, property flyer, and it's not the presentation. But look at it, you're like, which one do you like better? There's this design, there's this layout, this one. I was thinking,
Which one do you want for your house?
yeah, which one do you like better? And they go, I like that one too. You write it down. So it's also plays to the assumptive close, which is I'm just assuming all along I'm the agent because when they say something, I've written it down as part of our game plan. Right?
Yep.
And I do like that.
Yeah.
So just pick one. Because
So-
that's easy, right? It's like picking out wedding invitations.
Did you say printing out wedding invitations?
Yes, because my daughter just got married.
Yeah,
And I paid for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in fact, here's the other thought that I just had. Here's the other thought that I actually just had. Ultimately, if you want a good presentation, really at the end of the day, you are the presentation. That is the reason here at Century 21 Everest that we work so much and talk so much about what are you reading, what are you listening to? Because at the end of the day, when Natalie brought up, I just had this gut feel. People can sense that on you too. When you show up, it's who you are when you show up. That's why we talk so much about making sure that you are consistently improving on who you are as a person, that you are becoming better. And who is it that you're becoming? Because at the end of the day, really, that's probably the best way to sum it up is you want a good presentation, work on yourself. Become better at who you are, just as a person. Because when you show up, they're going to feel it. They'll sense it. And when they can feel that and sense that, similar to what Natalie just said, is you're it. That probably sums it up better than anything that I have ever heard in terms of you want a good presentation, become a better person. And I'm not saying you're not a good person, but make sure that what are you listening to? Are you taking time to read every day? And are you thinking about and analyzing, what do I need? What's the next thing that I need to work on next? For me, to become this great listing agent. Because at the end of the day, that's really what it is who do I need to become as a person to be that type of a listing agent that lists 100 homes a year? Who do I need to be? And work on that, because really, you want a good presentation, that's how you get a good presentation. It's who you're going to become. Okay? All right, so I want to sum this up here. The other piece of this plan of action that you want to make sure to hit on is our pricing strategy. Now, we're not going to spend any time on that today, but it's in your script book. The pricing strategy is in the script book. So make sure you look through that and understand. And you want to communicate. We want to be future-pacing these clients. We want to be telling them, okay, now that we're going to be listing your home, and we're going to come up with the price here in just a minute, but here's what we know, is if you get no showings and no offers, you're 7 to 10% at least overpriced. If you're getting some showings and no offers, you're between 5 and 7% overpriced. So here's what we know. Every 3 weeks, we need to be adjusting the price. That's all I'm going to say on that. But you can look through and read more about the pricing strategy in there. But you want to explain this is our plan of action. Here's all the stuff. We're going to answer all their questions. We're going to talk to them. Here's what our strategy needs to be. Every 3 weeks that this isn't sold, we need to be reducing the price. That's what we know that, okay? Now, the only exceptions to that would be what?
Large and high.
Yeah, if it's a high-end home, we're probably not going to do it every 3 weeks. If it's a multi-million-dollar home, we might do it every 3 months or something.
Or anything over 600, I think.
Yeah, in fact, here's a great thought that I had the other day. In fact, maybe even somebody said it. Maybe it was one of you, so I shouldn't take credit if it was. But basically look at, for those type of properties, how long are they usually on market? What's kind of the average days on market?
6 to 8 months.
And whatever that average days on market is for that property, that's kind of what, if you're not sold by that time, you need to be adjusting. Does that make sense? So the next thing we're gonna do here then is the market, meaning market stats. Which actually reminds me of another thing, that up here in this, under your plan of action, if you talk about pictures and communication and stuff, have a stat, a story, and a commitment. So under here, make a note of that. Like if I'm talking about pictures, tell a story about some of them, or have some examples of, here's what some agents' pictures look like on the MLS. I mean, pull it up and show them. But that's not what ours look like. Here's what ours are gonna look like. And make a commitment to them that, you know what, I'm gonna commit to you that we're gonna have good looking photos that actually showcase your house and make it look good. So we wanna have a stat, a story, and then a commitment on these plan of action. Now, down here on market stats. So go over some of the stats, what we talked about at the start today. There are only 2,280 homes as of yesterday. There were 2,280 homes for sale in Salt Lake County. There were 2,700, and I don't remember what the number was, under contract. So in all of our time, Will, yours too, yeah, there are 2,280 for sale, there's 2,700 under contract.
I've never seen that in my
Yeah,
entire
me either.
career.
And it's the last month, in the last month.
You put the house, it's sold right in the whole way.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the kind of stuff we wanna go over with them. Now, but here's the interesting thing though, with that. Now, stop and think about this for a minute. You wanna really show some good statistics of that. What Will said is true. You list a house and it's selling, except for, look at how many homes expired yesterday. I mean, I haven't looked for the last little while, but a few months ago, within the last 2 months, I looked at like the 3 months prior to that, there were still about 500 to 700, depending on those months, there was between 500 and 700 homes that expired every month. So stop and think about that for a minute. And this would be a great thing to be telling a seller. If just putting a property on the MLS sold it, how come there were 500 to 700 that expired last month? When in our current environment, you got 2,280 homes for sale and 2,700 under contract. Why would, there's a difference there, a disparity of 500. So why did those 500 expire? That's a great question. Why would that happen?
Probably overpriced.
Could be the agent too, could be the photos. I mean, who knows? There could be a number of things. But so we want to go through some of the market stats. And even though, yes, because that's one of the things that is crucial of helping people understand. Yes, the market's great, but there's still 500 homes last month and we look it up and see what the current is, 500 that expired, that didn't sell. So in this type of an environment, if your house is not selling, it's got to be something wrong with the house or the agent. And so one of the two, right, Timber?
I don't know if this talks to inventory, but yesterday I stopped by a house in my friend's neighborhood. She said it had been on the market in October, and they took it off the market. So I went by to ask, like, are you putting it up in the spring? I mean, like, what's the plan? And this is it's high-end home. And he said 5 weeks ago, somebody who had come through in October knocked on our door and said they were still interested, and they went under contract 3 months after it had been off the market. So I don't know if that's just like they didn't find anything, if the inventory went, I don't know what the circumstances of the buyers, but it's just, I mean, it really does happen like that, because there's just nothing there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, good. So just wrapping it up. So once we've gone through the stats, I left off, and the CMA for them, and we can land on a price, then great. Let's go ahead and do some paperwork. Or you can say, let's go ahead and do some paperwork. How did you spell your first name or your last name or whatever, right? So we're just going to then close. So bringing this whole thing all together. Remember, especially on a listing presentation, there's really only two things. Choose me, then together we'll choose the price afterwards, right? And ultimately, if you will connect, create the value to show the value, and then close. See, a good presentation, the closing is just natural. It's just natural to get it taken care of. And if you have built value, there really should be no question in terms of the commission either. Because if you have separated yourself. If they start asking questions about the commission and challenging you on it, essentially, we just are too arrogant to want to hear that ultimately we didn't create the value. We didn't do enough here of asking and drilling down to getting the questions. Okay? What questions do you have? Okay, now here's what I was hoping to actually have you guys do some practice and role play it, but in the sake of time though, here's what I want you guys to do, and you can do it now if you want. Stick around or find somebody that you can go and role play this. Now, when you're role playing, especially with newer agents, don't throw all kinds of hard objections. Be pretty easy on them at first. I mean, we want to slowly build up to the for sale by owner, right? But you know, just practice going through and asking questions. And if you are the person who's acting as the client, pay attention to how it makes you feel as they're doing it. Are you feeling a little bit of like, whoa, that was a little pushy or whatever, but you know, and let them know, really give them some honest feedback of, hey, I really liked when you said this piece, or I think you ought to word that a little bit differently. But you've got to get together and role play this. Here's the thing that's interesting to me. Here at Century 21, every morning we've got some type of training that goes on. And I'm amazed at how many of even the newer agents that I see that have quit showing up to some of the meetings, and I ask them why. Why are you not coming anymore? And they say, well, because I've heard it all. Okay, but can you come up here right now and do a demonstration of this? And if the answer to that is not yes, you need to still be showing up and paying attention. Now, here's the other thing though, where my thought process went. I am coaching my 7-year-old's baseball team, and we are working on fundamentals. I mean, like, I start every practice, the kids come, they take a knee, they're down on one knee, I'm not going to do it, but they get down on one knee, and I tell them, okay, you got to feed the giant. I mean, I've broken it down to like, you got to hold the ball like this, like you're trying to feed an apple to a giant. So I tell them, you got to feed the giant, you got to pull your glove in as you come and make the throw. I mean, I really have broken this down into these things. And so because of doing that right now with these 7, 8, 9-year-olds, I'm like sitting here thinking about some of this stuff going, you know, how come in professional sports, I mean, like right now still, I'm a big baseball guy. In Arizona and Florida right now, I guarantee you these guys that are getting paid millions of dollars are like practicing their throw. They're practicing fielding a ground ball, making sure that they've got a wide base, that their butt's down, that their glove's out in front. I mean, they're working on these fundamentals. So don't get to the point that you become arrogant enough of saying, well, okay, I already know how to do that. I mean, these guys are getting paid millions and millions of dollars, and I guarantee you the Jazz right now are doing layups. I mean, stop and think about that for a minute. You don't have them going, well, I don't need to go to practice. Why do I need to practice? I mean, even Michael Jordan, who in my opinion, way better than Kobe Bryant, you know, which we took it to him last night, right? But way better than him, guarantee you he showed up, not only did he show up to practice, he was probably the first one in and the last one to leave for practice. So don't think you don't need to practice all this stuff, because the professionals practice and they get paid millions of dollars to do it. So stop and think about that. Okay? So get together, do some practice, and then the best practice you can do is go get some real appointments to do it with. Okay? So anyway, thanks for being here. Have a great day. We'll see you on Thursday. Thursday we're going to be doing technology. So I'm going to cover a bunch of technology pieces, and we'll get into some detail on some of them, but not all of them. So anyway, see you on Thursday. Go get a bunch of appointments, and we'll see you then. This is where you stand up and clap. No, stop. No, stop.
Oh, yes, so who do I talk to about, the family, the husband and wife coming in on Tuesday, about the mortgage, I'm tired, I'm hungry.
Yeah, me too. I'm not sure what
Yeah, having the buyer take over their mortgage if they